Hello, guys, welcome back to the chapter 2 of this audiobook. The lesson is 1. Rich don't work for money. The rich don't work for money. The dad. Can you tell me how to get rich? My dad put down the evening paper. Why do you want to get rich, son? Because today Jimmy's mom drove up in their new Cadillac and they were going to the beach house for the weekend. He took three of his friends, but Mike and I weren't invited. They told us we weren't invited because we were poor kids. They did? My dad asked incredulously. Yeah, they did. I replied in a hurt tone. My dad silently shook his head, pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose, and went back to reading the paper. I stood waiting for an answer. The year was 1956. I was 9 years old. By some twist of fate, I attended the same public school where the rich people sent their kids. We were primarily a sugar plantation town. The managers of the plantation and the other affluent people of the town, such as doctors, business owners, and bankers, sent their children to this school. Grades grade 1 to 6. After grade 6, the children were generally sent off to private schools because my family lived on one side of the street. I went to this school. Had I lived on the other side of the street, I would have gone to a different school with kids from families more like mine. After grade 6, these kids and I would go on to the public intermediate and high school. There was no private school for them or for me. My dad finally put down the paper. I could tell he was thinking, well, son, he began slowly. If you want to be rich, you have to learn to make money. How do I make money? I asked. Well, use your head, son, he said, smiling, which really meant that's all I am going to tell you, or I don't know the answer, so don't embarrass me. A partnership is formed. The next paragraph's title. A partnership is formed. The next morning, I told my best friend Mike what my dad had said, as best I could tell. As best I could tell. Mike and I were the only poor kids in this school. Mike was like me in that he was in this school by a twist of fate. Someone had drawn a jog in the line for the school district, and we wound up in school which with the rich kids. We weren't really poor, but we felt as if we were because all the other boys had new baseball gloves, new bicycles, new everything. Mom and dad provided us with the basics like food, shelter, clothes, but that was about it. My dad used to say, if you want something, work for it. We wanted things, but there was not much work available for 9-year-old boys. So, what do we do to make money? Mike asked. I don't know, I said, but do you want to be my partner? He agreed, and so on that day, Saturday morning, Mike became my first business partner. We spent all morning coming up with ideas on how to make money. Occasionally, we talked about all the cool guys at Jimmy's beach having fun. It hurt a little, it hurt a little, but that hurt was good, for it inspired us to keep thinking of a way to make money. Finally, that afternoon, a bolt of lightning came through our heads. It was an idea Mike had gotten from a science book he had read. Excitedly, we shook hands, and the partnership now had a business. Neighborhood, knocking on doors and asking for our neighbors if they would have their toothpaste tubes for us. With puzzled looks, most adults consented with a smile. Some asked us what we were doing, to which we replied, we can't tell you, it's a business secret. My mom grew distressed as weeks wore on. We had selected site near next to her washing machine as a place we would stockpile our raw materials. in a brown cardboard box that one time held catsup bottles. Our little pile of used toothpaste tubes began to grow. Finally, my mom put her foot down. The sight of her neighbor's messy, crumpled, used toothpaste tube had gotten to her. "What are you boys doing?" she asked. "And I don't want to hear again that it's a business secret. Do something with this mess or I'm going to throw it out." Mike and I pleaded and begged, explaining that we would soon have enough and then we would begin production. We informed her that we were waiting on a couple of neighbors to finish up their toothpaste so we could have their tubes. Mom granted us a 1 week extension. The date to begin production was moved up. The pressure was on. My first partnership was already being threatened with an eviction notice from our warehouse space by our own mom. It became Mike's job to tell the neighbors to quickly use up their toothpaste, saying that dentists wanted them to brush more often anyway. I began to put together the production line. One day, my dad drove up with a friend to see two 9-year-old boys in a driveway. With a production line operating at full speed, there was fine white powder everywhere. On a long table were small milk cartons from school, and our family hibachi's grill was glowing with red hot coal at maximum heat. Dad walked up cautiously, having to park the car at the base of the driveway since the production line blocked the carport. As he and his friend got closer, they saw a steel pot sitting on top of the coal with the toothpaste tubes being melted down. In those days, toothpaste did not come in plastic tubes. The tubes were made of lead. So once the paint was burned off, the tubes were dropped in the small steel pot, melted until they become liquid. And with my mom's pot holders, we were pouring the lead through a small hole in the top of the milk cartons. The milk cartons were filled with plaster of Paris. The white powder everywhere was the plaster before we mixed it with water. In my haste, I had knocked the bag over, and the entire area looked like it had been hit by a snowstorm. The milk cartons were the outer containers for plaster of Paris molds. My dad and his friend watched as we carefully poured the molten lead through a small hole in the top of the plaster of Paris cube. "Careful," my dad said. I nodded without looking up. Finally, once the pouring was through, I put the steel pot down and smiled at my dad. "What are you boys doing?" he asked with a cautious smile. "We are doing what you told me to do. We are going to be rich," I said. "Yup," said Mike, grinning and nodding his head. "We are partners." "And what is in those plaster molds?" Dad asked. "Watch," I said. "This should be a good match." With a small hammer, I tapped at the seal that divided the cube in half. Cautiously, I pulled up the top half of the plaster mold and a lead nickel fell out. "Oh my god," my dad said. "You are casting nickels out of lead." "That's right," Mike said. "We doing as you told us to do. We are making money." My dad's friend turned and burst into laughter. My dad smiled and shook his head, along with a fire and a box of spent toothpaste tubes. In front of him were two little boys covered with a white dust and smiling from ear to ear. He asked us to put everything down and sit with him on the front step of her house. With a smile, he gently explained what the word counterfeiting meant. Our dreams were dashed. "You mean this is illegal?" asked Mike in a quavering voice. "Let them go," my dad's friend said. "They might be developing a natural talent." My dad glared at him. "Yes, it is illegal," my dad said gently. "But you boys have shown great creativity and original thought. Keep going, I'm really proud of you." Disappointed, Mike and I sat in the silence for about 20 minutes before we began cleaning up our mess. The business was over on the opening day. Sweeping the powder up, I looked at Mike and said, "I guess Jimmy and his friends are right. We are poor." My father was just leaving as I said that, boys, he said, you are only poor if you give up. The most important thing is that you did something. Most people only talk and dream of getting rich. You have done something. I am very proud of the two of you. I will say it again. Keep going, don't quit. Mike and I stood there in silence. There were nice words, but we still did not know what to do. So, how come you are not rich, Dad? I asked. Because I choose to be a school teacher. School teacher really don't think about being rich. We just like to teach. I wish I could help you, but I really don't know how to make money. Mike and I turned and continued our cleanup. I know, said my dad. If you boys want to learn how to be rich, don't ask me. Talk to your dad, Mike. My dad asked Mike with a scrunched up face. Yeah, your dad, repeated my dad with a smile. Your dad and I have the same banker, and he raves about your father. He's told me several times that your father is brilliant when it comes to making money. My dad, Mike asked again in disbelief. Then how come we don't have a nice car and a nice house like the rich kids at school? A nice car and a nice house does not necessarily mean you are rich or you know how to make money. My dad replied. Jimmy's dad works for the sugar plantation. He's not much different from me. He works for a company and I work for the government. The company buys the car for him. The sugar company is in financial trouble and Jimmy's dad may soon have nothing. Your dad is different, Mike. He seems to be building an empire and I suspect in a few years he will be a very rich man. With that, Mike and I got excited again. With new vigor, we began cleaning up the mess caused by our now defunct first business. As we were cleaning, we made plans on how and when to talk to Mike's dad. The problem was that Mike's dad worked long hours and often did not come home until late. His father owned warehouses, a construction company, a chain of stores, and three restaurants. It was the restaurants that kept him out late. Mike caught the bus home after we had finished cleaning up. He was going to talk to his dad when he got home that night and ask him if he would teach us how to become rich. Mike promised to call as soon as he talked to his dad, even if it was late. The phone rang at 8:30 p.m. Okay, I said. Next Saturday and put the phone down. Mike's dad had agreed to meet with Mike and me. At 7:30 Saturday morning, I caught the bus to the poor side of the town. The lesson begins. The title starts with the lesson begins. I will pay you 10 cents an hour. Even by 1956 pay standards, 10 cents an hour was low. Michael and I met with his dad that morning at 8 o'clock. He was already busy and had been at work for more than an hour. His construction supervisor was just leaving in his pickup truck. As I walked up to his simple, small, and tidy home, Mike met me at the door. Dad's on the phone, and he said to wait on the back porch. Mike said as he opened the door, wooden, the old wooden floor creaked as I stepped across the threshold of this aging house. There was a cheap mat just inside the door. The mat was there to hide the years of wear from countless footsteps that the floor had supported. Although clean, it needed to be replaced. I felt I felt claustrophobic as I entered the narrow living room, which was filled with old, musty, overstuffed furniture that today would be collector's items. Sitting on the couch were two women, a little older than my mom. Across from the woman sat a man in workman's clothes. He wore khaki slacks and khaki shirts, neatly pressed but without starch, and polished work boots. He was about 10 years older than my dad. I would say about 45 years old. They smiled as Mike and I walked past them, heading for the kitchen, which had to the porch that overlooked the backyard. I smiled back shyly. Who are those people? I asked. Oh, they work for my dad. The older man runs his warehouses, and the women are the managers of the restaurant. And you saw the construction supervisor who is working on a road project about 50 miles from here. His other supervisor who is building a track of houses and already left before you got here. Does this go all the time? I asked. Not always, but quite often, said Mike, smiling as he pulled up a chair to sit down next to me. I asked him if he would teach us to make money. Mike said, "Oh, and what did he say to that?" I asked with cautious curiosity. Well, he had a funny look on his face at first. And then he said he would make us an offer. "Oh," I said, rocking my chair back against the wall. I sat there, perched into two rear legs of the chair. Mike did the same thing. "Do you know what the offer is?" I asked. "No, but we will soon find out." Suddenly, Mike's dad burst through a rickety screen door and onto the porch. Mike and I jumped to our feet, not out of respect, but because we were startled. Startled means a sudden shock or like alarm. Continue. "Ready, boys?" Mike's dad asked as he pulled up a chair to sit down with us. We nodded our heads as we pulled our chairs away from the wall to sit in front of him. He was a big man, about 6 feet tall and 200 pounds. My dad was taller, about the same weight, and 5 years older than Mike's dad. They sort of looked alike, though not of the same ethnic makeup. Maybe their energy was similar. Ethnic means cultural tradition. Continued. Mike says, "You want to learn to make money? Is that correct, Robert?" I nodded my head quickly, but with a little intimidation. He had a lot of power behind his words and smiles. "Okay, here's my offer. I will teach you, but I won't do it classroom style. You work for me, I will teach you. You don't work for me, I won't teach you. I can teach you faster if you work, and I'm wasting my time if you just want to sit and then listen like you do in school. That's my offer. Take it or leave it." Oh, may I ask a question first? I asked. "No, take it or leave it. I've got too much work to do to waste my time. If you can't make up your mind decisively, then you will never learn to make money anyway. Opportunities come and go. Being able to know when to make quick decisions is an important skill. You have an important you have an important opportunity that you asked for. School is beginning or it's over in 10 seconds." Mike's dad said with a teasing smile. "Take it," I said. "Take it," said Mike. "Good. Dad, good," it is said by the Mike's dad. "Mrs. Martin will be by in 10 minutes. After I thorough with her, you ride with her to my superiority and you can begin working." Superiority means a small supermarket. "I will pay you 10 cents an hour and you will work for 3 hours every Saturday." "But I have a softball game today," I said. Mike's dad lowered his voice to a stern tone. Stern tone means serious tone. "Take it or leave it," he said. "I will take it," I replied, choosing the work choosing to work and learn instead of playing softball. Okay, this will be the part one. I think so. Okay.